Okay, everyone. Good morning, afternoon, evening, whatever you may be in the world today. Got a pretty special event today. My friend EMK, or Jesusyoume, who I haven't really talked to too much recently, informed me today actually that he kind of has an affinity towards young creationism, and that's one thing. One thing. Okay, watch my own feed. And I really didn't know that, so that is news to me. So I've kind of made a little deal with EMK. That is basically, if he wants to come on my channel here and we'll talk a little about young creationism, then I will reciprocate and in return go on his channel at his leisure and talk about anything he wants. And I think it's going to be more like how science kind of proves God or Jesus, something along those lines, and then he can invite anybody he wants. And that means anybody, as long as it's kind of a fair panel. I mean, I don't really want to sit there with 9 people on one, but that's not how he usually runs his hangout. But, you know, if he wants to bring in Darwins and Ronnie and Neffy and Tommy and C. Brown, and then maybe, 2 people that agree with me, I'm fine with that. But anyways, welcome, EMK. How have you been? You looking good?
Yeah, I'm good. Thank you. How are you?
I'm doing substantially better than I was. Still unemployed, but I'm trying to fix that. I've got a lot of applications out. People have been very supportive. My Patreons have been very, very supportive. So once we get this going, if any Patreon wants to come in first, you get priority seating. Maybe you want to ask EMK some questions as well. And we're just going to let it roll. My first thing is, and you kind of answered this a little bit before we went on air, but not into any great detail, but since when are you a younger creationist, or even have an affiliation with younger creationists?
Well, ever since I became a Christian, I, for whatever reason, was more inclined to the interpretation of a young earth. And so that was sort of just my default.
And is that based upon the biblical interpretation, or is that based upon like Usher's chronology or Ellen G. White's visions, or
biblical interpretation?
Biblical. Okay, so when you're talking about the days of the earth being created, literally it was a 24-hour period.
Well, that's what I'm inclined to go with, but I am open-minded enough to as well as many other things in the Bible, I'm open-minded enough to say, hey, you know what, maybe it's not this way.
Okay, that's fair enough. I mean, it's good that you obviously, you want to seek out what is reality. What do you take a preference to, though? Do you take it as your interpretation of biblical scripture to be prioritized first, or the actual science? I mean, if science says, okay, look at all these different branches say the earth is not 10,000 years old. Every one of them gives the same exact approximate value in the 4.5 some odd billion years. Which one do you personally gravitate towards as more as being the priority that you would attach truth to, saying I'm more likely to go with the science and what I think I'm reading into the Bible?
I more would go along with what scripture says. But there's an issue, because what does scripture say? It can be complicated to figure out. But let's say, for example, there was something super clear in scripture that no Christians debated about, and science found that it was different than that. I would go with scripture.
Okay. Does that apply equally across the board? And yes, I'm using that phrase. Somebody had mentioned that I use that phrase a lot. And I don't think I do, but I'm using it here. Equally across the board towards like some of that supernatural claim, or like a physical claim? Like, for example, if we say like Jesus rose from the dead, yeah, science really can't address too much about that. But when we say, hey, these rocks are billions of years old, you're going to go with the Bible saying that the rocks are billions of years old, because the Bible doesn't say that.
If the Bible said that rocks were wait, what?
What I'm saying is the Bible doesn't say anything about that specific thing about rocks being billions of years old. Now you're saying maybe if the Bible said rocks are billions of years, or excuse me, not billions of years old, then you would go with what the Bible says, right?
Right. But you know what? That was a great example I think you brought up with Jesus, because no scientist would say that a dead body could raise back to life.
Yeah, well, I think most of them would probably say we have no known way for this to occur. Physically speaking, right? I mean, if you're dead, you're dead. And I'm not talking about somebody who's just been unconscious or, brain dead for like a minute. Even though, well, I guess if they're brain dead, they're permanently dead. But I mean, if somebody is temporarily has died on the operating table and they bring them back, that's not what we consider to be absolutely dead, right? But somebody who's been dead for like a year, the body is all decayed and stuff like that. Yeah, they're not coming back. We don't know any means scientifically how that would happen. You agree?
Right.
Okay. So I think that if something like that happened, it would require some kind of spiritual miracle, or if you really want to get into it, some kind of quantum mechanical thing possible. I don't believe that, but according to quantum, it may be. But all right, so let's get back to the young Earth then. So you have looked at some of the evidence. I know that. From what you've seen, just from the science, what do you think the age of the Earth points to?
Well, okay, based on science, doesn't science say the age of the Earth is like, let me guess, wait, let me try to remember here. What is it, like 2.5 million?
No, the age of 4.54 billion plus or minus 200 million, I believe.
Wait, you said
5.4 billion years old plus or minus 200 million, which means it can go higher 200 million or lower 200 million.
the Earth itself, they're saying, is 5.4 billion?
Yes.
Okay, I thought that's how they were saying how old the universe was.
No, the universe is 13.7 billion approximately. There's a couple of different measurements they've used from satellite data. They've kind of refined that number over the past couple decades, not by much, but I don't remember what the plus or minus is. If somebody wants to look it up, that's great. I'm not going to sit here and really Google anything unless it's really important. But from what I remember, it's 3.72 or somewhere in that ballpark billion years old by the Planck's data. So yeah, the big difference between 4.5 billion and 13.7 billion, right?
Yeah. Okay.
All right, so you think the science actually indicates that it's millions, billions, days, weeks? Yes, that last Thursdayism?
What do I think the science says
Yes.
of the Earth age?
Mm-hmm.
Well, yeah, they're saying 5 point whatever billion.
4.5 billion. No, but I'm asking you, do you agree with the science? I mean, do you find fault with the science? Do you think there's been some kind of a mistake somewhere down the lines in all the different branches?
Oh, okay. Do I have any particular argument? Well, I'm on a website right now. And how about this?
Okay.
There's a little article right now, and it says, how does young Earth creationism handle the evidence for millions of years in the fossil record? Was that interesting to you?
Yeah, sure. But I mean, I'm not really talking about the fossil record. I'm talking about the age of the Earth, which is going to be, not having to do with fossils. It has to do with geology and astronomy and astrophysics, because how the Earth formed from nebulous clouds and accretion disks. But I mean, it all kind of boils together. I mean, you have to be able to disprove not just the fossil record, but the age of the Earth, the age of the universe. I'm just saying in general, without getting specificity, what do you disagree with the science about?
Okay. Well. To be frank about this, and upfront, and honest, it's not that I'm disagreeing with scientists. It's that I will go with whatever the Bible teaches, but I'm not even certain about what the Bible teaches.
Right. Well, you have said before that you kind of somehow follow some kind of strange global skepticism, right? Some kind of universal, almost epistemological annihilation in some ways, right? I mean, you kind of question everything, including existence. And is that fair?
To a certain point. I don't question everything.
Okay. Do you accept that you exist?
Yes.
Okay. And do you accept that you exist in physicality, not just like in the mind of God? That'd be like, I found out there's a word for that, or a phrase. It's called ideal modalism. It's really cool. Cool concept. Did you ever heard that before, EMK?
You know what? Yeah. I heard of modalism. I don't know about that first word in front of it.
Ideal modalism. Yeah, I just found out recently. It's basically the belief that we are all in the existence of the mind of God. The doctor had educated me on that. But you should accept that we are physical beings. Okay, so if we are physical beings, we are susceptible to physical laws, correct?
Yeah.
Okay, and we can use those physical laws if they hold. We have no reason to think that they don't. We can actually assume that they don't, but let's, for the sake of argument, assume that they do. We can use these laws to show how old the Earth is. We can show by radiometric dating how old the Earth is. I know there's some people out there like King Matthew, God bless his heart. He's in the side chat saying, well, we don't know this, we don't know that. Well, yeah, we kind of do. What the problem that people have against radiometric dating is usually they don't understand it. That's the key thing. I think you do. I don't think that you have a problem there.
Hey, Steve, can I read you something?
Sure, go ahead.
Now, I have no idea about this paragraph that I'm about to read, but I just want to run it by you. It comes from a
Absolutely.
Christian.
Go ahead.
What about the billions of years accepted by most scientists today and taught in the vast majority of our academic institutions? This age of the Earth is primarily derived from two dating techniques, radiometric dating and the geologic timescale. Scientists who advocate the younger age of about 6,000 years insist that radiometric dating is flawed in that it is founded upon a series of faulty assumptions, while the geologic timescale is flawed in that it employs circular reasoning. Moreover, they point to the debunking of old Earth myths, like the popular misconception that it takes long periods of time for stratification, fossilization, and the formation of diamonds, coal, oil, stalactites, stalagmites, etc. to occur. Finally, young Earth advocates present positive evidence for a young age of the Earth in place of the old Earth evidences which they debunk. Yeah, last sentence. Young Earth scientists acknowledge that they are in the minority today, but insist that their ranks will swell over time as more and more scientists re-examine the evidence and take a closer look at the currently accepted old Earth paradigm. What do you think about that?
Well, it's a lot of assertions. They're basically saying that in science, the scientists are making assumptions, and that's not the case. The case is that these are actual conclusions. These are not, we assume the Earth is old, let's go out and look for evidence of that. That would be circular. That would be an improper way of doing science. What we say is, what is the age of the Earth? What are we seeing about the Earth that makes it look old? And then we go out and look for evidence for it. Young creationists are the worst, and no offense, but they are the worst at understanding scientific methodology. They do not understand what a predictive modeling is. They do not understand what a conclusion is. They don't know what an actual presupposition is. Like I said, we're not going out there and saying, hey, let's find all the evidence that supports that the Earth is old. We can do that, but it's really, what is all the evidence showing us? And the evidence is showing us, oh, look, the Earth is really old. You know, what we can do is go, have you heard of isochron dating?
Can I read something to you real quick with one sentence?
Sure.
So this also says, which I think might tie into what you just asked me, those who hold to billions of years trust that methods such as radiometric dating are reliable and that nothing has occurred in history that may have disrupted the normal decay of radioisotopes. Okay,
what has occurred in history that has disrupted the decay, and what would it be across the board? Okay, since you brought something up, I actually did bring this up, and I'm looking at this right now. It's on the age of the Earth. There's different types of dating methods, as you know, and there's what's called isochron dating, and that basically is a way of dating with corresponding radiometric dating to events, like when things have been metamorphosized, when they crystallize, when rocks have solidified. So it's kind of a correspondence. Okay, so these dating techniques, the first one is lead gives. It is 4.543 plus or minus 0.019 billion years. And I'm not going to get the real technical, but they all are about 4.54, 4.55, rubidium, strontium, lead, argon. They're all of these are about 4.5 plus or minus. Okay, so they're all like that. So the burden on the young Earth creationists at this point is to show what would be possible that all of these different dating methods are in error exactly the same way in accordance to their own individual decay rate that would make them all give an indication of 4.5 billion years. And none of them have been able to do that. Because that's what they need to do. They can't just say, well, you're assuming that these decay rates have not changed, or you're assuming nothing has changed them. Well, we are assuming that, but there's no reason not to, because you've given, not you, but the young earthers have given no evidence that these have changed or could change. And how would they all change such a way when they all have different half-lives that they all come up with the same date? It makes no sense, right? If they all have the same half-life, then you can say, okay, there's one process that changes them equally, but they all have different half-lives. So we should have this weird, strange variation of radiometric dates, right?
So are you saying that there's different elements or something that have different half-lives and they're all coming back with the same dates and they're all different methods?
Yes, sir. Yes, and argon, potassium, rubidium, strontium, lead. There's a lot of different types of radiometric datings, and they all, you know as well as I do, that nuclear isotopes have different decay rates. They decay at different times, right? So if the young Earth model was right, saying that, oh, things can change decay rates, then we should not see this uniform across the board, and I use it again, saying that they're all having consilience toward the exact same range. And I mean really, really tight. All of these, if you look at them, every single one of them is 0.45 except for one. And I don't even know what this one is. What is OS in the periodic chart? Go get Ronnie. He has it memorized. Anybody remember what OS is? Obsidian. What is it? I don't remember the. See, when I don't know something, I'm fine. I actually say I have no idea. I'm just trying to look at the periodic chart of what this element is, so I don't butcher it. Oh my goodness, can't even talk. Like I said, we can get Ronnie. Ronnie has the entire periodic table memorized, so. This is not working for me, dang it. Does anybody know what REOS isochron dating? Anybody know those elements off the top of their head? Oh, that's the live feed. But anyways, go ahead. While I'm looking this up.
All right.
Oh, it's osmium. So it's rheninium osmium dating. See, I didn't know osmium. I don't have the. Thank you, Michael. I don't have the periodic table memorized. I'm not Ronnie. I actually just will look it up. I'm sorry. But go ahead, EMK.
So you're basically saying, so why, how come these elements couldn't have changed their decay rates all to the same proportion?
Yeah, basically. I mean, if the young earther is going to suggest that there's some reason why we don't accept the fact that radiometric decay rates don't change, and that's not necessarily true. They can change in certain conditions. I've actually brought that up in one of the presentations I did on polonium halos. They can change. I mean, you can have electron capture and some other things that can do minor changes, but nothing to any great extent, with one exception, and that I believe is a type of beryllium. I don't remember which one it was, which isotope of beryllium, but it only was if it's in a non-excited state. So it's not really comparing apples to apples, but it is a huge factor. It's like a magnitude 9. But yeah, exactly. Though you have to come up with a reason why these radiometric dating techniques are so exactly the same, no matter what we use. If we use argon, boom, it's 5.55. If we use rubidium, strontium, it's 4.51, and they're all within the a pretty decent degree of overlap. So basically, they're all saying the exact same date. None of them point to 7 to 10. None of them. Why? So why is that then?
Why are different dating methods coming back with the same dates?
Correct.
I don't see so far why is that, why does that seem to be compelling to you?
Well, I mean, that's evidence. If, like I said, if we want to say, okay, how old is the Earth? And we know how much time it takes for these elements to decay and produce their radiometric decay daughters, we could say, okay, well, if we have this much left at this ratio, at this decay rate, then at this point we must have this much. And the only time we had that was 4.54 billion years ago.
So okay, let's take the first element. What's the first element that they use?
The first one here is lead.
So they use lead, and they found that it has a certain half-life or something?
Well, all things that decay have a half-life.
Okay, so it decays at a certain rate.
Yeah, they call it the decay constant.
So, okay, so it has a decay constant.
Mm-hmm.
And so then what is their next step?
Well, I mean, I don't want to get too much into the actual technicalities. You can go to one of my videos and watch that. I mean, I don't think we need to go down that road, because people are like, oh, well, Steve's just trying to, like, you know, get MK down the road of like nuclear physics, and I don't think that would be, you know, what we're doing here. I mean, if you want to learn about decay constants, like I said, I did a video on polonium halos, and I actually explained the differential equation that is the basis for these things. It's not that hard. It's dn over dt equals negative decay constant times n. And it really just basically means the time rate of change of the isotope with respect to time is going to be equal to the negative decay constant times the amount of atoms you have.
So they test rocks, right?
They test a lot of things. It's not just rocks. I mean, again, there's a consilience here. I mean, even with carbon dating, when they're testing for carbon, we can see that these methods work. We can say, okay, well, we know this was from this period. There's a big sign that says, hey, you know, this artifact is stamped on it, you know, 200 AD or whatever. And then we can do a radiometric dating on it if it has some kind of a biological consistency to it. Maybe they use like ash we can carbon date because it is carbon. Then we can say, oh, look, it came out to 201 AD. That's pretty good, right?
Well,
we know this stuff works.
I'm still not understanding how when they take maybe you could paint the picture for me here.
Okay, go ahead.
Let's take a rock, for example, or a fossil, or whatever. Let's take a fossil.
Okay.
They pick up a bone. Well, no, because we're talking about Earth, not fossils, right? So
either or. The principle's the same, right?
Okay, so they pick up a fossil, and then what do they do with that fossil to then try to figure out how old it is? So, like, what's the first thing they do?
Okay, in a nutshell, if it is not, we don't usually use fossils carbon dating, okay, because fossils are too old. They don't have any carbon left in it. Okay. But we can use it for like things that are in a couple 10,000 years old, right? I mean, we can go back it's about 50,000 years for carbon dating. You can go back higher. You can go to 80 to 100 even, what's called accelerated mass spectrometry. But this is very expensive. But for the most part, 57,103 is about where we go as far as carbon dating. So what we do is, let's say this carbon element, item, or artifact, fossil, what do you want to call it? That's non-fossilized, by the way, but let's say it's like 10,000 years old. We expect it to be. So we can do carbon dating on it. And what happens is that there's a ratio of carbon-14 to carbon-12. It's a fixed ratio. It's
How do they know?
What?
Okay, but do you mind if I ask?
Go ahead.
So they basically look for carbon inside of that fossil?
Yes.
How do they do that?
Because there's two types. There's a couple different types of carbon. The carbon 12, 13, 14. But what most of them is as a ratio of carbon 14 to carbon 12.
Okay.
Carbon 14 being radioactive, carbon 12 being the stable form.
All right.
That there's 1 trillion atoms of carbon 12 for every 1 carbon 14. It's a ratio in biological systems. Okay, so we know in the human body, if we have this much carbon 12, we should expect to see this much carbon 14.
How do they find? How do you?
Let me finish real quick. And if once something dies, right, you're not taking any more carbon, right? You don't eat anymore. You're not taking any more source carbon. Do you agree with that? So whatever you have at that point, you're done, right?
Yes.
Okay. So once the thing dies and you pretty much cannot take any more carbon in, we look to say, oh, look, we have this much carbon 12. Okay. We have this much carbon 14. We know that carbon 14 decays at this rate. And with a little bit of math, using a very simple formula, it's an exponential formula. It's just like you use for compound interest. I call it PERT, P equals ERT, or P equals negative ERT. And it's just basically a very simple formula. You can rearrange it quite a bit. But when you're using that, we can say, oh, look, we have this much left. Therefore, initially we had to have this much, and this is based upon how many years ago on these half-lives.
You know what
That's
they should
how
do?
we determine it.
You know what I think they should do?
What should they do?
They should do a carbon test on a living organism.
Well, that wouldn't work because again, we're trying to find the time that the animal or whatever it is died, right? If you're living, you can't tell when the thing died, right? It's going to give you an invalid result.
Well, I thought carbon was all about dating the age of an organism or thing.
It's dating to at the point where it died, because it's no longer taking in carbon again. Remember, the whole point is once you stop taking in carbon, that ratio of carbon 12 to 14 is going to change because you're no longer taking in carbon 14 to replace the carbon 14 that is decaying to carbon 12.
All right, this is going to sound crazy.
Oh, I'm used to that. Go ahead.
All right. The person holds their breath.
Yeah, they hold their breath.
They cover their nostrils. What do? Inject them with something and take out some cells or something? No.
Yeah, I don't think you're fully seeing what I'm saying here. Maybe it's just me. You know, there is some kind of constraints with carbon dating. I mean, we're not going to carbon date something like to yesterday or last week because the actual plus or minus is in years. Okay, I mean, we're going to have some kind of inaccuracy, right? So we're not going to be able to do anything like that. If you died yesterday, it's not going to say, oh yeah, we need carbon dating to date your remains to yesterday. We don't have, it doesn't work that way. We need something that has a tolerance where we can say, okay, this is 400 years ago, plus or minus 5 years, plus or minus 10 years, plus or minus 20 years. It depends. I don't remember what the actual variance is, but it's up there. It's in years. And I think as more further back you go, I think the variance obviously changes too, but I don't know what degree.
So it all comes down to dating techniques and methods.
No, not necessarily. I mean, the age of the Earth is based upon a lot of things. Radiometric dating and geological formations are just two of them. I mean, we can look at the moon as an example too. I mean, the moon, those rocks up there have been dated, and they're 4.4 billion years old. The radiometric dating is consistent all over the place. I mean, plus you would have to come up with science to explain how these things form so quickly. How do we get a sun that basically works in 7,000 years ago, right? Our model requires the sun to be billions of years old, right? It's not just radiometric dating. It's the way fusion reactions work. It's the way the fusions in the sun would have to have occurred over a period of time to create the star. There's no science that says, oh, we can do this in 7,000 years. None. So yeah, it's not just two things as your source tries to make it out to be. There's many, many different things of why the Earth is the way it is and the age. And again, you can go to even biology, you can go to proteomics, you can go to the whole cytochrome C argument that people have been bringing up lately. This is stuff that happens over a period of time, not just 7,000 years. Did you have something else you wanted to read, or I mean?
Well, yeah, I'm looking at CARM right now.
Oh, goody.
And they have a little article or whatever called "Is Carbon Dating Reliable?"
Mm-hmm. And do they have any evidence that it's not? Because I would love to hear it. I have not heard any so far, ever.
How about that? Let me send you the link right now, and maybe.
No, I've read all that stuff, dude.
Oh,
Go ahead.
right?
Yeah, of course I read CARM. Yeah, you know, Matt Slick is not a scientist. I wouldn't even call him a philosopher at this point. I don't know him very well. I don't listen to him. I've never talked to him. I know a lot of people have. I'm just not duly impressed by him. He just seems like a shuckster to me, a con man, very slick, no pun intended, for his name, but I don't take him seriously. So what would Carm give an example of radiometric dating that somehow invalidates carbon dating? Because this is really fruit on the ground stuff. I got to tell you, I can tell you this is not that hard to challenge.
Let me read you something real quick.
All right, go ahead.
Other factors affecting carbon dating. This is not.
Just give one. Just give one at a time if you can. That's cool. One.
The amount of cosmic rays penetrating the Earth's atmosphere affects the amount of carbon-14 produced, and therefore.
Yes, that's true. Okay. What about it? That's very true. Yes, carbon-14 and nitrogen-15. They are produced in the atmosphere due to cosmic rays. Carbon-14 can change into nitrogen-15 and vice versa due to radiometrics. So what does that matter though? That's in the atmosphere. We take this stuff into account. We know that there's going to be changes in the atmosphere concentration. 30,000 years ago, the atmosphere concentration was slightly different. These things are factored in. We know these things. That's why they don't affect carbon dating, because when we do the carbon dating, we know these things happen.
Check this out. This person writes, also, the Genesis flood would have greatly upset the carbon.
Well, there's two things on that. One, that's a blind assertion. And two, how would it have affected it? What's the mechanism by which a global flood would have changed it?
The flood buried a huge amount of carbon, which became coal, oil, etc., lowering the total carbon-12 in the biosphere.
That does nothing to do with the actual ratio. The ratio is a fixed ratio of 1 trillion atoms to 1. Okay, so that is a physical thing. That is this how much concentration there is to carbon-12. We know this. The global flood's not going to change any of that.
Okay, I got some ratio stuff. Therefore, the carbon-14, carbon-12 ratio in plants, animals, the atmosphere before the flood had to be lower than what it is now.
Again, that is what's called an assertion. There's no evidence to support that there was any major changes. There have been changes in the concentration as acknowledged by cosmic rays. But again, we have factored that in. These are just people saying, well, pixies have came along and changed this, therefore carbon dating is wrong. Oh, Santa Claus has said that carbon dating is wrong, therefore carbon dating is wrong. Genie from I Dream of Genie, did a little head tilt, and all of a sudden carbon dating is wrong. They've produced no evidence and no science why anything's wrong. You're even reading it. Is any of that science? They're just making an assertion. Global flood would change these things. Why? How does it affect how much ratio a living organism has of carbon-12 to 14? It wouldn't, okay? This is what I'm saying before. Everything I've told people about carbon dating when they say there's something wrong with it is a gross misconception on their behalf because they're not understanding how radiometric dating works. Would you agree so far that nothing in there is science?
Well, I don't know, but...
Well, yes, come on. I think you do, don't you?
Well, it sounds like they're using science because they're talking about...
Are they? Or are they just making blind assertions?
Well, look, here's one thing it says. Researchers, okay, so basically it's saying researchers applied posterior reasoning to the dating of Australopithecus ramidus fossils.
Okay.
Most samples of basalt closest to the fossil-bearing strata give dates of about 23 million years.
What does this really have to do with anything?
So I guess what it's saying is that when these techniques have gotten a certain date, and it was something that they wouldn't expect, that then they, what this says is that they pretty much explained it away somehow or something.
No, when there's an anomaly, right? What they do is hang on one second. I got a noise. Oh, hi, Ron. Okay, sorry about that. No, what happens is they look for reasons why these things came up with the things they did. For example, like we all know the reservoir effect. We all know there's anomalies that if you try to radiometrically date, oh, hang on.
Are you there?
If you try to radiometrically date seashells from the seafloor, we know that because of the type of shells they have, the carbonous shells they have, is not going to be correct because there's going to be a different concentration of carbon-14 to carbon-12 in that water. So that's not an atmospheric source. That's why we don't radiometrically date those things. So when we find an anomaly, like saying, okay, this penguin was freshly killed and it was radiometrically dated to be 1,000 years old, we want to know why. Okay, we know why now. It's the reservoir effect. We look for reasons why. We don't just magically change things and say, okay, well, we can't explain this, therefore we're just going to throw a fudge factor in. We don't do that. Unless you're Einstein, and that doesn't count because he was actually right. But for the most part, we don't do that, right? So what you're reading off is not evidence against anything. We have something, and I don't know what kind of astrophysicist you're talking about, to be honest, but we had something that may have been slightly incorrect, so we're trying to figure out why. That does not disprove all the other methods that we use that are confirmed, that are known to be just fine. You've not gone and explained why the lead dating or the argon potassium dating or the carbon dating that we've used across the board correctly is incorrect. You've just thrown some other anomaly out there maybe that if we do or do not know the answer to, but that doesn't negate the evidence that I've given you thus far on this other types of radiometric dating. Would you agree?
Okay, so basically it sounds like you got these different dating techniques, and since I didn't research this stuff, I don't really know what to say.
No, that's fine. We don't even have to go down this route, man. I'm not at all sharpshooting or nothing like that. If you don't want to talk about radiometric dating, nope, I'm fine with that. I think we could just keep it really simple and say, you know, for a young earther to say that the earth is young, they need to provide evidence for that. They need to not only falsify every shred of evidence that points to the old earth, because it all does, but I think you deep down know, but they have to give their own evidence as why it's young. If we say, okay, we falsified hypothetically that the earth is not 4.54 billion years old, we need to come up with evidence to show what it actually is then, right? We don't say, oh, well, it's not 4.54, therefore it's 7,000, right? That's not how it works. Disproving claim X doesn't prove claim Y. We can say, oh, well, you know what? It isn't 5.4 billion. We found out it's only 600 million years old, right? Which is not going to happen, but hypothetically. But there's no evidence whatsoever of any kind to say that 7,000 to 10,000. And just by saying, well, the flood will do this or that, without a reason, without a mechanism, without science to back that, that's just an excuse. That's just somebody saying, oh, well, I'm going to throw out magic did it. I'm going to throw out pixies did it. There's no reason to accept that as evidence because it's not evidential.
Okay, we got to get someone around here that knows more details than I do.
On young earth creationism or on what?
Yeah.
You can bring anybody you want.
Oh, I don't know anyone that does that.
I've been trying to get, I've been trying to get, young earth creationists to come in all the time, especially the bigwigs, Humphreys and Tompkins and Georgina Prudhomme, any of those guys. I would love to have any of them come in, right? I'm not calling you fruit on the ground by any means. Don't think that I am, but I deal with a lot of fruit on the ground creationists. They come in and they just basically say, oh, well, Piltdown Man. It's like, come on, really? If I hear Piltdown Man or Haeckel's drawings one more time, they don't even understand the arguments. They don't understand their own arguments. So I don't know anybody that probably knows some of this stuff in depth, or else they probably wouldn't be young earth creationists.
Are you saying that there are scientists out there that are believe in a young earth?
Oh yeah, absolutely. Yeah, quite a few. I mean, they all write for they write for AIG and they write for ICR, and they get paid to do it. They get paid to produce misinformation.
Oh well, that's an accusation.
Yes, it is, and I can definitely support it because when you have people that have PhDs, those are the two things: that they're grossly incompetent or they're dishonest. Now, I would make a very strong argument that it's a combination of both, but there has to be some level of dishonesty there, either they recognize it or not. Because if you're an expert in a field and you make these gross mistakes, something is fundamentally wrong. Like if you're a mathematician, and I try to convince people that 1 + 1 = 15, And I say I just have a legit PhD in mathematics, and I'm going around teaching people, no, 1 + 1 is equal to 2, 1 + 1 is equal to 15 in base 10. Would you see a problem there?
Okay, let me ask you a question in return.
Well, answer that first. Would you see a problem there?
Not necessarily.
Not necessarily. Okay, why not?
Well, maybe they mean it in a different way, just like Lawrence Krauss means nothing in a different way.
No, let's assume that they don't. Let's say, you add 1 apple plus 1 apple, you get 15 apples.
If it was cut and dry like that, then yeah, there would
Okay.
be something wrong.
Well, that's what we see when we see some of these people say what they say. So I am definitely under the indication that they are paid to write things to the average masses that sound good, even though to the experts like Sam and Fiona, to CRISPR, to Rational, to Ruhif, these guys that really do know their stuff, Isaiah, Jade, I mean, the list goes on. If I forgot anybody, I'm sorry, but there's a whole bunch of you guys that know your shit. When they could point out these things, then I have to believe that somebody who has a PhD is not being completely truthful to themselves or to their readers.
So when you said you were trying to reach out to people, are those the people you're trying to reach out to, PhD people that advocate?
I have. Oh, yes, I have. Yes, absolutely. I've written to quite a few of them. I've talked to Sarfati on numerous occasions. He has a PhD in genetics or microbiology.
So are you kind of close to getting some people to chat with you on Hangout or what?
Yeah, it's a rough question. We are in the process. I know 2 or 3 people that have been in communication with Dr. Jeffrey Tompkins. It may happen. He seems to be unwilling to go on programs where they disagree with him. He wants to go on programs like Ian Juby and those kind of shows where they seem to have a affinity toward his belief system rather than being challenged. But it may happen.
Oh, okay. So you could see these people's stuff on YouTube or something, but not in a setting where it's like a debate or a disagreeing discussion.
Yeah, I guess so. I mean, like I said, they're not that high on going on to something like this where they know up front that I'm going to have people in the field, people that do know about bioinformatics and genetics that are going to challenge him on his paper. And I use that term very loosely. I should use the word he used. I think he uses a manuscript, if I'm not mistaken, on the human chromosome number 2 fusion site. People have totally ripped it apart, and they kind of want him to defend it. I don't think there's anything wrong with that. We have somebody in our community that actually got him to revoke one of his papers, as you may know. Ruhif explained to him the bug in BLAST, and he actually revoked his paper on the 70% analysis, saying that we were only 70% alike with chimps because of the problem in the bug. So he has talked to people in our community. He knows who we are. Not me, but per se, but he knows of our community. So yes, why would we not want him to come in? We want the big dogs, right? We want the people that are printing out this information, because I get my list of people and say, okay, who's my experts here that can actually do a good job in refuting them?
Yeah, I'm looking up some videos on YouTube right now, and I typed in Young Earth Debate, and I'm basically looking at what's popping up here.
Well, it's not a debate. See, here's the thing. I don't debate, right? I've done my debate with Wayne. I'm not a debate person. I think debating is useless. I find it to be nonsensical in some ways, because you don't get anywhere with a debate. Debating is just for show. I'm not really much into that. If people want to do it, great. I'm not faulting them. But I discuss, and I think you can get a lot more out of a hangout and a lot more out of persons who are intelligent and educated by having civil discourse with them and just one-on-one interlocutories, rather than have this structured formal system. I find that the people that are the worst in our community, the most uneducated, the most incorrect, the Nephilim Frees, the Trues, those guys, they want debates because they know they cannot really sustain themselves in a form where actual science is being discussed. They would never survive in any way, shape, or form. And they know this. They definitely know this.
Well, okay. Yeah, I don't know what to say at this point. Do you want to let people in?
Yeah, I mean, yeah, we can open up a little bit if you want. I am going to offer it to my Patreons first. They know who they are. Just send me a message on G Plus, on Facebook. Actually, I'm going to open Facebook right now. And just give me a message and give it a few minutes. We'll get the Patreons in first. If there's none that wants to come in, then we'll get some other people. I would love King Matthew 17 to come in. Because I really like King Matthew. I don't want to discuss science per se with him because he doesn't really deal too much with science, but you know, he does have the younger position. So we got some questions in the side too. Okay, I'm sorry. While we're getting people in here, Christopher Hislap lied. You had some questions, and Blackjack had some questions too. I'm trying to remember Blackjack's question. I saw it. It was something like, do you subscribe to Solus Scriptura or Solus Fideist? But I don't remember what his question specifically was about it. So he wants to type it again. Ian?
Do I hold to Solo Scriptura or Solo what?
Fideist.
I don't know what either one of those means.
I believe Solus Fideist is just by faith alone, if I'm not mistaken. Somebody can correct me on that. Solus Fideist, is that by faith? Well, let's see if we can get some people in here and they can ask.
Well, I'll say what I don't know what those words mean, but I believe that everything in the Bible is true. The only issue is figuring out what does the Bible say.
Yeah, well, that's the Sola Scriptura is basically the final word of God, is the biblical version. I mean, that's kind of what it is. But again, trying to figure out what the Bible's saying has been, people have been doing that for thousands of years. And I don't think anybody's gotten it right because there's no way to determine if somebody has it right. So that's why when you have the book of Scripture, which is going to be the Bible or any other scripture you believe in, you also have the book of nature. And the book of nature is science and nature and reality. These things have to take precedence. If you're reading the Bible that says the earth is flat, and all the evidence points that the earth is not flat, that it's an oblate irregular spheroid, then it doesn't really matter whether the Bible's right or wrong. You can still believe the Bible's right, but your interpretation is most certainly wrong. That is a given. Okay? So let me see who I can get in here. I think, let's see here. I got a few people messaging me. So let me get some people in here real quick. Again, Patreons do have priority, but so far none of them have messaged me, except for one, I think. One sec. I'm getting you guys the link right now, so give me a second. And anybody else want in? Gary, did you want in too? Message me if you do. Yeah. Gary, if you're going to send me a request for a link, don't do it publicly where if I put the link, everybody's going to get it and I'm going to get sniped. Please do it privately. Good grief, dude. I sent it to you in an instant message, phony doodle maniac. Because I'm not going to put the link in a public message.
I say maybe you try to get
Anybody you want, man. Knock yourself out. You can bring in freaking Ronnie if you want. I don't care. Bring in Neffy. Bring in Darwin's. I mean, this is open. If you want to do that, fine. But then we get to bring in who we want too. So be prepared on that. I know Darwin's really does not want to answer certain questions, and I know Neffy's been chased out of here so many times. It's amazing. Hey, Drews, how are you?
Not too bad. I just thought I'd be patient and not interrupt the flow at the moment.
No problem, no problem. What do you think so far? I mean, do you have a question to ask? Okay.
Yeah,
And by the way, you are a theist. Let's point that out, correct?
yeah. I'm not an atheist.
Yeah.
If you want to be specific, I'm a pagan, but I don't normally talk too much about that. I'm happy to if people want to question. Yeah, it's just my passion, hobby, and a fair portion of my life has always been involved around archaeology, and this is one of the things that I kind of have a slight issue with the sort of people like Neffy's view of how the flood happened or when it happened. And I'm wondering what's your view on it, MK?
The flood,
Hmm.
sort of the same thing.
So,
yeah.
so around 4,400 years ago, global flood. Lots of.
I thought
Sorry.
you. No problem. I thought you just meant if it happened or not, and is it global or local? That's what I thought your question was.
Yeah.
Yeah, I would say. Well, my initial belief would be, well, first of all, I don't have a belief on it, but I lean more towards it being a global. Yeah.
And do you sort of agree with sort of like the Bishop Ussher chronology point of view? Are you that sort of, is that, because I don't want to misrepresent what you think, so I'm being very careful.
I don't know what that means. I mean, I'm not familiar with that.
Oh, Bishop Ussher was the one that developed chronology for the young Earth by adding up all the people in the Bible, the genealogies, and then deriving the creation dates, the biblical flood dates, and the birth of Jesus.
Well, I heard someone say this, and this is not something I necessarily buy into or not. I don't know. But I heard someone say this, that there could have been millions or billions of years that existed before God created the first people, and that the Bible might even teach that,
Well,
depending on
that's kind of like a gap theory or coordinates probably thing, right?
maybe.
Yeah. Yeah, and that's fine. I mean, but that still means the science is correct, right?
Yeah, I guess so.
Okay. Yeah.
Maybe. I mean,
Okay.
maybe not necessarily, but yeah, we could that could be a way to harmoniously put them together.
Okay. Because I don't care if somebody does that. That's not my thing. I'm sorry, Drews. Real quick,
That's right.
I don't care if somebody says, okay, I accept all the science. God did it. I don't care if they say I accept all the science. Santa Claus did it. That's not my thing. I'm not going to sit there and care what they think caused it all. My thing is first they have to accept that the science is right, and they have to accept that the Earth is not young. After that, I leave it for other people to kind of go down that route and determine, who did what. If somebody wants to convince you that Santa Claus didn't do it, I'm going to leave it up to them because that's not what I do, right? I couldn't care less if you think Santa Claus did it. But I do care when people tell people that the Earth is 7,000 years old. So that's my thing. That's my first thing I got to do is get them to stop thinking that the Earth is 7,000 years old, and after that, I leave it for other people. So if you can reconcile it with your Bible, saying, oh yeah, you know what, the Bible, I'm reading it, and yeah, you know what, I do think that it does make sense that it's saying the Earth is 4.54 billion years old. I'm down for that. That's fine. Go ahead, Drews. I'm sorry.
No, that's all right. The only reason I'm asking these sort of questions is just really around one of the things that I always hear from people that believe in the flood, that it happened fairly recently, around 2,400 BC is normally what we get told. And it laid down loads and loads of sediment, and Neffy puts up videos saying 1,800 feet of sediment, and that's actually the average height of all the sedimentary layers in the geological column around the world, and that was all laid down by the flood. But when you read the Bible and when you look at Genesis and the Noah story, it talks about all the people there. There's obviously stuff going on. There's cities being built. There's wars happening. It's all pretty terrible. And then the flood comes and dumps 1,800 feet of sediment. But I'm digging it up, and it's less than 10 or 15 feet anywhere.
Well, actually, can I throw this out there? And I know this is your
Sure.
area, but when Nephi being the consistent person he is at screwing things up and not reading things in context and purposely misquoting and miscontextualizing, something we all know he's famous for. There is something out there, and I can't find it at the moment, so you're going to just have to trust me on this one. There is something out there that does explain the whole 1800 meter thing. And what it is basically is an average. If you took all the sedimentation across the entire planet and from the highest to the lowest and you made an average of it, that's what it's supposed to be. There are places on the Earth where it is 0. There are places where it's 15,000 meters. There's a huge variance. I don't remember the continental shelves that had it. I think one in Texas has like it's a few thousand meters more. It's like 15,000. I think in a place in Alaska, if I'm not mistaken, was like 0 meters. So what Nephi's trying to do is he's taking this and saying, oh, look, an average is 1,800 meters. Therefore, across the planet, there's some ubiquitous 1,800 meter layer that's all over at 1,800 meters. That's not what the paper was
Sorry,
saying.
Steve, it's 1,800 feet.
Is it feet or meters? I thought it was meters.
Feet. No.
Okay, I'm
feet.
sorry. Yeah, there's a big difference there. My
Trust
bad.
me.
Kill me. All right, stop. You can all unsubscribe to me now. My life is over as I know it. Okay. No, you know what? If NASA can screw up, metric and imperial, then I can too. So it's 1,500 feet. So is it? I'm still thinking it was meters. Why am I thinking meters?
It's 1,800 feet.
Oh, I believe you. I just for some reason always thought it was 1,800 meters.
The only reason is because I was in a hangout with Nephi where I was arguing this for about an hour. And I just zoned out and was looking at the slide behind him.
Okay, well, we'll go with 1,800 feet. Anyways, though, there are places where there's just, as you know, there is no sedimentation layer.
Well, the thing is if we'd expect that, and we see civilizations that are demonstrably older than 2,400 BC, and we've got a lot of them, and we dig them up everywhere, you'd expect we'd find one that will say 200 feet deep. Just one. We don't. And you can go and check that out. You can look everywhere. I've actually been looking for one just in case I was wrong. We don't even dig up fossils like Lucy at 1,800 feet. And so that to me is a really problematic issue if that's the kind of story they want to portray, because it causes. I actually believe, and for me, I'm one of the people that believes that the flood myths are actually real. They are actually connected, but it was probably quite a bit further towards the end of the last ice age, the melting of the glaciers, raising of the sea level. You had the Wisconsin ice dam, which broke and flooded a huge area. That's why you get the Washington Badlands. Stuff like that. We see it. We see it in the geology. We see it in the archaeology.
Yeah, that's true, though. There is instances of floods. Just recently, you guys may have read an article on the Japanese flood that scientists had, kind of like said, well, we really don't have any evidence of this mythical flood that happened in Japan. But a couple of scientists went out there to really confirm it one way or another, and they found there actually was a local flood there, and they found out what happened. It was a dam that had broke thousands of years ago, but it was on a local thing. It wasn't nowhere near like the global flood. It doesn't indicate a global flood, but it does mean that these myth stories do have some basis, a kernel of truth to them, and then they usually get distorted and changed out of hand, because that's what often happens with myths, right? So when they're talking about a global flood, I am all for saying there was probably a flood, but it wasn't global and it wasn't some kind of catastrophic thing. It was one of the the rivers or seas that overflow. Yeah, I got no problem with that. I think that maybe Drews, would you agree on that?
Yeah, I mean it's just it's very simple things like the number of cubits between. That was the height of the flood. Well, who got out and measured that? To come back, it was an observation, it wasn't a pronouncement. And the Bible's quite clear where it's observation and where it's pronouncement.
Yeah.
So, it's things like that. And I love the Bible. I love, all ancient literature, but the Bible is a fascinating book, and it carries a lot of meaning for a lot of people. But I think, the literalist, I was brought up a Catholic, I've got friends that are Anglicans and Protestants, and the level of literalism that goes into sort of scriptural view. It's about, allegory, it's about story, it's about teaching, it's about learning, it's about, spreading, their faith. I don't think any of that, when the flood happened, exactly how it happened, takes any of that away from them. And that's what I don't understand about the whole issue, I suppose.
Well, let's ask EMK, because I think Christopher's question is directed to you, and I'm not sure here, hit slaps. If you were convinced overwhelmingly that there was no global flood, there was no Noah's Ark, the Earth is not 7,000 to 10,000 years old, it obviously wouldn't affect your belief in God. But would you be fine with saying, yeah, you know what? Yeah, I believe in God, and I'm very religious, but this whole young Earth creation stuff is just not right. Would you ever get to that point?
Would I ever be able to get to that point?
Is it possible? I mean, does it? If you found out that young Earth creation was wrong, would it like shatter to your faith to the core, like it did, like Isaiah's here, and he became an atheist because of it?
No, well, definitely not, because I know that there's tons of Christians that, like Rational Theist Matt, who shares the same view as you about the age of the Earth.
Mm-hmm. And he was a ex-young Earther, right?
No, I didn't know that.
Yes, yeah, he actually was a very staunch young Earth creationist. But then he thought about it, and he actually educated himself and realized that all their arguments were just really bad. And learned enough science to realize that, yeah, it wasn't. And I think it did shake his faith up a little bit, but he's a staunch theist. So, I mean, it doesn't have to, like, destroy people's faith, but it can. Like Isaiah's it did. I think Mike J., I think he was an ex-young Earther that destroyed his faith. Because when people find out that this is a scam, it does affect them. It really does. And I do believe it's a scam. I have no question about it. But I'm trying to get some other people in. If you want to get somebody in here, DMK, by all means, invite whomever you wish. Just remember, though, I can invite anybody I wish too.
Yeah, I sent the link to someone I know named Spoken. You know Spoken.
You know what? I invited Spoken as well.
Who else? Yeah, that's all I could think of at the moment.
Yeah, Spoken is a little bit of a broken record because it seems he suffers from DPR Jones syndrome. That when we explain to him something, then 2 days later he forgets it. Gary, I sent you it in an EM, in a message, in Google Hangout message. You haven't not accepted it yet. Gary's like, where did you send the link to? Well, it's your instant messages.
You know what? Maybe it would be. Maybe if Matt were to come in here and discuss why he shifted from young to old, maybe that would be interesting.
If he wants to. You want to send him the link? Fine.
Yeah, I could.
I'll try to invite him in the internal, but sometimes it hasn't been working too well. I don't know why. I'm going to invite King Matthew anyway, just in case he wants to. And I'm going to go so far as even invite C. Brown. He was in one of my hangouts the other day. I didn't get a chance to talk to him. Not my hangout, actually. It was a VC Agnes's hangout. But I'm just going to toss out a few people here that might be interesting. Can somebody in the live feed explain to Gary how to do an instant message, even though he's been around forever? It's underneath, and if you go to Gmail, in the side there, where the Hangouts are, there's instant messages for all the different times you've been in a Hangout. It'll come up there.
Yeah, go to your Google Plus page.
Yeah, or you can just hit search for me, and then you see it come up. So, hey, Matt. Matt, EMK requested your presence.
Yeah, I thought.
See, this is when you know you're getting bigger in the community, when you can summon people at will. You know. I speak his name if he does appear.
I'll shatter your delusions if you're not careful. So we're going to be fairly soon.
Dude, my illusion's been shattered so many times. It's par for the course.
Okay, so Matt, I think you might have the same view as Steve when it comes to the age of the Earth, and my question is, what made you shift if you were young before and now to old?
The evidence as presented to me by Glenn Morton in his many articles online showing young Earth creationism to be an invalid position to hold to.
So what do you are you familiar with all of the young Earth creationists' arguments against dating methods?
No, not in depth. I just have a kind of general idea that they don't trust radiometric dating. They say it's unreliable, things like that. But you know, that's not serious stuff.
Yeah, because at this point, I'm thinking that I mean, from my limited research, that seems to be the route that I think young Earth creationists are attacking the older thing is discounting the
I think
dating.
there's many lines of attack, but
Oh, really?
there's responses to every line of attack that the young Earth creationists put out for the age of the Earth,
And that's a key thing.
yeah, I think
Every argument they have has been shut down. And not just like hand waved away. I mean, we're talking shut down, stomped, resurrected, burned at the stake, beaten to a bloody pulp. I mean, their arguments are just so bad, most of them. I mean, I'm still getting people that actually argue the moon dust argument. I mean, literally, the moon dust argument.
Okay, how about this? If the dating method thing wasn't something that you got into detail about, Matt, then you referenced that one guy before. So what was the whole thing there then?
I mean, I moved away from young Earth creationism some, I don't know, 10, 15 years ago. So at that time, Glenn Morton was an active participant on Facebook and on other social media sites. He was posting articles. He had a whole list of articles, and so I don't recall which one specifically. I think a lot of it related to the. I think he was a geologist or a geophysicist or something like that. So he was talking within his field of expertise with tectonic plates, with arguments against the global flood. From what we expect to find, what would happen to things like the salt content and things like that. There was a whole tirade of arguments that, but sometimes when you hold to a position and you come across stuff you've never seen before and you spend a few weeks on it and you just read stuff after stuff after stuff after stuff, you just have to put your hands up sometime and said, you know what, I've been believing bullshit. This is not the case. And I would make a secondary argument that even if you had no knowledge about the arguments from young Earth creationism, I would make the argument that we can trust the scientific community, that we have no reason to not trust the scientific community when it's telling us about facts about the observable world. When it's talking science, we can trust it. You don't need to go and look at the evidence. I would say if the scientific community are saying the Earth is 4.5 billion years old, that's it. Trust it.
I've got a better question for you, Matt. I respect that overall, but I do have a better question. Is when you found out that younger creation was bullshit, and I do give you huge props for that. That takes critical thinking, obviously. What prevented you from losing all faith, if I can ask, like it has happened with other people?
Because I was aware there were other options on the table.
Okay.
So theistic evolution was another option, and I said, well, wait a minute. Is my belief in God, would my belief in the Bible be stretched to the same breaking point by accepting theistic evolution as the evidence against young Earth creationism would be? I gave that some thought. Glenn Morton was a previous young Earth creationist, and he became a theistic evolutionist, so he was a practicing Christian. I said, well, he's an example of how someone that I think is giving out very good arguments and seems to reason well, that he hasn't abandoned Christianity. So I never threw the baby out with the bathwater, and I kind of looked at the alternative, and yeah, and the more I looked at the alternative, the more I said, well, okay, you know, actually becoming a theistic evolutionist gave me a new understanding of the Bible. I didn't need to force Genesis chapter 1 to all take place in 7 days and argue against all the evidence against that. It actually made the Bible much easier to appreciate and understand. So it was just a case of not throwing the baby out with the bathwater.
No, and I got you on that. I mean, like I said, some people can do that, some people can't. I'm just trying to figure out where EMK lie in that spectrum.
Okay,
What do you would incorporate or not?
Someone said there's an echo, Steve.
Yeah, it's Gary.
It can't be me. I'm wearing my headphones.
I just heard you, but we'll find out. You shouldn't be getting an echo right now. I'm not echoing. There's no possible way.
Okay, so what was that, Steve? What were you saying?
Oh, I'm trying to gauge. You know, that's why I asked you before. I said if you found out, like Matt had found out that young Earth creationism is complete bullshit. That is a scam. It's wrong. It's just not science. It has no basis in reality at all. Would it destroy your biblical faith? And some people can incorporate it. Some people can't. Obviously, Matt found an alternative, theistic evolution. Wayne Fillmore, when he got out of young Earth creation, he found theistic evolution. Hunter Bailey, he found theistic evolution. I'm wondering, though, what would happen to EMK if EMK finally realized that young Earth creationism is bullshit? Would he then become an atheist,
No,
agnostic, or be able to accept theistic evolution or the creationism? That's my question.
Yeah, no, definitely. I would, my first step would just be shifting into theistic. Well, I don't even know if I would shift into theistic evolution, because I don't even know if evolution is necessarily connected with the age of the Earth.
Well, it would be in regards to cosmological evolution, not biological evolution,
Right.
but
Yes, that's true.
cosmological
Sure.
evolution.
Okay, can I ask you a question?
Go ahead, Gary. Yeah, and you're right, Matt. Yes, but go ahead, Gary.
Right. I think that the whole point with evolution is that it's a scientific fact, whether you believe it or not. So I think that the fact is that yak, or what you would call about it, shouldn't affect your faith, because it could be perfectly true and God not, and God exist, could be not true and God not exist. So I see it like that. And I feel the exact same way about that whole zeitgeist nonsense, that some atheists put forward. It's the exact same thing to me. And the thing is, okay, I would like to know I want to ask you a question. What science have you actually looked into? And I'm hoping it's not calm.
Me personally,
Can you turn down your music, by the way, Gary? I hear music in the background.
me personally, was that a question to me?
Yeah, that's you.
Well, I looked into some things on the internet about 20 minutes ago on this hangout with Steve.
Yeah, he was well prepared. This was pretty impromptu, to say the least. So I can't really fault him too much. He didn't have any time for this. This wasn't something that we planned weeks in advance. This was, hey, Steve, what's up? Hey, want to have a hangout? Okay, cool. Something along those lines.
I would just point out that I wouldn't identify myself with Wayne Fillmore's theistic evolution. In fact, I've been posting against his view of theistic evolution.
Yeah, no, I mean, I'm not fully. Yeah, I got you too. I mean, Wayne still has a ways to go. I'm taking things with baby steps. I mean, I don't agree with him on a lot of things either. But I'm going to leave that for other people, right? I mean, I've done what I need to do. I mean, I think that his first step was acknowledging that Ken Hovind is a con man, that Ken Hovind is somebody who doesn't know science, who doesn't care about anything except for promoting his own agenda. That's my first step, right? after that, I'll leave it up to you, Matt. I'll leave it up to even like General Han Solo or whoever. You guys take it and run with the ball after that. If there's problems at incorporating with the Bible or what do they call it, concordance with the Bible, that's your guys' thing. I really have no say in that, to be honest with you.
Yeah, but I didn't want people thinking that I had caused you
I know. Yeah, for the record, Matt and Wayne don't fully agree on specifics when it comes to that.
I probably don't agree with any theistic evolutionist on their view of theistic evolution.
That's probably true.
Yeah.
But yeah, I have no science background in this at all. All I've heard was just basic, like, young Earth creationists. They're not really on board with the dating methods, and I didn't even really look into the reasons.
Yeah, well, now you can though, and I can guarantee you when you do, you're going to find out that they have no argument. They're literally just saying the same thing as I said. Magic fairies make it not work correctly. They don't have any argument. They have to come up with something sounds scientific that confuses people, but has no reality in actual science. That's why actual scientists out there don't fall for any of this. If they read this stuff and they go, yeah, this is complete crap. But the layperson who doesn't really know much about it says, oh man, these guys make sense because they're using polysyllabic words and they're using these scientific sounding words and therefore they must be right. Well, no, that's not how it works. And by the way, did we get rid of the echo? Because I'm pretty sure it was Gary, but the outside chat was.
I think it's Dross. Yeah. It can only be me or Dross, and I've been muted, so it can only be Dross.
No, I think it's gone now. I think Gary had.
Yeah, what happened to Fact Finder?
I've been trying to get Fact Finder for ages. He actually has said to me, he's like, Steve, I really want to have conversations with you. I've enjoyed having conversations in his room. He was supposed to look into a few things. I did that presentation on polonium halos to explain to him why Gentry's work was complete garbage. I think I did a pretty decent job considering all things considered. I only had like a day to prepare for it. But he never got back to me on it, and I haven't heard anything, so no, I have no idea.
No, I've not heard from him, not seen him or heard from him in a few days.
Maybe he got the message and got beat down so bad he's afraid he can't face his Bonfire Posse peers.
I mean, I think he would change his mind if the stuff on Gentry is falsified. I don't think he would run away. I think he would kind of hands up and.
Yes, I do too.
Then he would move to some form of theistic evolution.
I agree, and that's why I did the presentation for him, right? I mean, I'm not going to waste my time for somebody like Nephi or True. They're done. Their stupidity has been solidified and cemented. But when you come with Fact Finder or King Matthew 17, I think they're honest guys. I think they want to know the truth, and that's the argument. That's the type of a person I'm looking for, right? Those are the types of arguments I want to have with people.
I was going to say, MK, I would recommend some books to you. One's called Find Darwin's God by Ken Miller, who was one of the key scientists behind the Dover trial. Now, he's a Catholic, but also he's an evolutionary biologist, and he goes into a lot of detail about, where this young Earth creationism, intelligent design stuff comes from. Also, Francis Collins' book, I think it's called Faith with Evolution or something like that, is also a really, really good book because he was the ex-head of the Human Genome Project, and he explains it in a way that the problem with Jane Cohen is that, well, he's a scientist, he doesn't understand faith or Christianity or anything religious. So you may want to stay away from him because he doesn't understand. Because he doesn't understand it, he doesn't get that there isn't a conflict.
Yeah, those are good. I mean, I haven't read either one, but I'm familiar with them, and that's good advice. I just don't think EMK is going to probably go down that route. I think he wants to keep it superficial, and I understand that.
Okay.
Yeah, I wouldn't share that recommendation. I don't agree with Ken Miller. He doesn't just. He's not just giving unbiased information on science against young Earth creationism. He's also the leading proponent of the attack against intelligent design, which is not the same as young Earth creationism, as much as people like to conflate the two, and is a completely different subject, and needs to be evaluated on completely different grounds. And if you are going to read Ken Miller, then you need to also read responses to Ken Miller from people like Stephen Mayer and from people like Michael Behe, people like Jonathan Wells, people like that who have responded to him in considerable depth, and then you'll have a balanced view of that debate, but it's really not a debate about young Earth creationism, it's a debate about intelligent design.
I
And
would
I
agree on
don't
that
think,
to some degree.
I don't think he's unbiased. I think he's very biased.
Well,
And he
I think
doesn't.
everybody has a
I think if
bias.
you read a biological textbook, like if you pick up a university or a college level biological textbook, which is yeah, unless it's his. Yeah, I know. Yeah, that's what I was going to say. I mean, he is. Yeah. So read his textbook. I don't think his biology book is slighted against. It's not aimed at disproving young Earth creationism or disproving high intelligent design. I think it's just presenting standard biology.
Yeah,
And if you know standard biology, you're not going to be a young Earth creationist.
there's some truth there, and it's something that I disagree with. Yes, his biology books are very good. I think everybody kind of agrees with that. And if you want to learn biology, great. I have to disagree with Mitchell McDowell on the side chat. ID is not young Earth creationism. I do believe ID is a form of creationism, absolutely. But you don't have to necessarily be a young Earth creationist to accept ID. Matter of fact, ID would be more related to old Earth creationism, not young Earth. But Ken Miller does do a lot against young Earth creationism and a lot against intelligent design specifically. That is a different thing, but that's a whole different ballgame, and I'm not going to go down that route. But as far as reading Ken Miller and just looking at the biology, yeah, it does kind of falsify young Earth creationism. If you want to take it to the arena of young intelligent design, that's a whole different thing. But I see what you're saying, Matt. But I don't think EMK wants to go down that route. But I don't think he's really that firm on it. I mean, honestly, EMK, I mean, are you really that firm of a young Earth creationist? Because it doesn't really sound like you are.
I think he's AFK at the moment. He's got to be right back in the chat.
He left me?
At some point.
He left me?
Yeah, he did.
He could
At some
never leave
point,
me.
I mean, I don't think, at least on my present evaluation, and not being disrespectful, but I don't think MK has a solid position on any
Anything?
subject that we are debating. And even worse, I don't think he has an interest in doing any research in order to formulate a definite position on anything. I think MK is happy with his religious faith, his faith in God and Jesus Christ, with trying to do what he can to host hangouts and I think there's a place for someone like that, but his place is not in the great debate, doing the debates and the discussions, because he doesn't have the knowledge
That might be true.
to do that.
Yeah, no, I see what you're saying, and it also is. From what my past experience has been with him, I don't think he has a solid position on many things. Even at one time, he was wavering whether his position that we existed even was the case, or that he could formulate any position on anything, whether anything was even knowable. It was a weird type of epistemological nihilism in some ways. And I'm not saying that that's like precluding people from having these conversations, but you're not going to really take something out of a conversation when you have that kind of mindset, where you just have no opinions of your own and no foundation from which to draw upon, or no knowledge to draw upon. You can throw out all the things you want there and say, okay, go read Ken Miller, go read a science book, go read a book on evolutionary biology. But when you are that dead set and not really wanting to learn about the topics, yeah, it doesn't really do that much good. But I mean, I want EMT to address that. Is this something that he wants to learn more about, or is it just kind of just a throwaway topic for him?
I came back right at the time that you asked that question.
Good. Because you left me.
Sorry about that.
That's okay. I'm used to it from my women, but from my male friends, no. No, just kidding.
Oh, no, I just walked away for a second.
Okay.
I said BRB in the side.
Yeah, I saw. No problem. Go.
Am I even interested? Yeah, honestly, at this point, really no.
Yeah. No, that's fair. No, I respect that. I get that. Matt was pointing that out earlier while you were AFK, and I was just kind of agreeing with him. I think we both kind of recognize that, and you admit that, and I respect that, right? I mean, if somebody's going to admit to something, that and be honest about it, what can you do, right? It's the liars that I can't stand who basically come into a conversation being disingenuous, and that we all know a few of those in the community, right?
Yeah, now I'm not going to say it's something I totally don't care about at all. I mean, I am interested. Then interest exists, but I would have to kind of be pushed and motivated to like really start digging.
And I understand that. I get that. But no, I appreciate the conversation thus far. I didn't really want to get into any kind of technical science crap. I didn't really want to get into like the radiometrics because I'm not even prepared to have that kind of discussion. My main goal was basically to find out what really prompted you to get into younger creationism when I didn't think that you were. It really surprised me that you said you were. And how much evidence do you really have for it? Because it sounds like your entire position is faith-based. Would that be fair?
Yeah. Okay. So I'll put it like so. So just to get in a little bit more detail about how I got into young Earth creationism, is basically that's the way I was taught it.
Taught it?
Well, taught it.
Go ahead. I'm just messing with you.
Yeah. So yeah, that's really the reason. But I guess I'm the type of maybe personality that even though I was taught that way of interpretation of Genesis, well, actually the interesting thing is it doesn't just stick in Genesis, because there's like even parts in the New Testament that somehow connect. Like Jesus, for example, says stuff about like Adam and Eve, or Jesus says something about the flood. So like people, Christians have said basically that Jesus himself accepts that the flood happened, but that's not really about the age of the earth. But anyway, my point was
well, you could also take it as a story too. I mean, if Jesus, I don't remember Jesus talking about the flood. He could have, but if he did, maybe he was relating the story, because these things were all parables and allegory and stuff like that.
You know, yeah, that's true. Even when Jesus was talking about it, maybe he accepted that it was allegory, but he was just, going with the flow of it. That's a possibility as well. But yeah, so I was just basically, that's how I was taught about the 6 to 10,000 years and the 7 days, literal 24 hours. That's how I was taught. And so that's why I have that by default. But I'm open to the other, but like I said, yeah. So, but yeah, to answer your question, that's why. That's just how I was taught it.
Yeah, that'd be fine. I mean, you know I'm not a mythicist, right? I've never claimed to be a mythicist. I mean, I think there was a physical person named Jesus somewhere down the line. I got no problem with his existence. It's the other kind of stories that go along with it that I kind of have some reservation about, obviously, especially when it comes to like the global flood and Noah's Ark. Because I mean, I can never believe Noah's Ark. It's just, you might as well ask me to believe, in Scientology. I just couldn't do it. There's just too many scientific things that disprove the possibility of an ark like that.
Well, check this out. I was just on this website, like right before you invited me to your hangout. I was chatting with Viva, and him and I were talking about the flood. And in one of this articles, this Christian article, they were saying that there are fossils of like ocean animals on top of mountains.
Of course, and that's easily explained. That's not even. I mean, that's been explained for God knows how long. There's nothing to do with the global flood. The types of fossils, the ocean fossils that are found on these mountains, are from several million years ago. And what happened was you had plate tectonics causing an uplift on one of the plates, which produced like the Himalayas. So when you have two plates that are pushing against each other that are both on the seabed, or some shallow seabed, they're going to have these types of fossils. The things died, and they're all old fossils. You never see like a modern species, extant species fossil. It doesn't happen. These are old, ancient species. And what happened was one plate went over the other, and as it went up, it produced the mountain ranges. And so the mountain ranges at one time were seabed, thus having fossils. That's what we would predict. That's what we would expect with plate tectonic theory.
Yeah, that sounds like it fits.
It does. I mean, it perfectly fits in accordance to what the fossils are. Yet, when you listen to a younger creationist, like, oh, well, that would only happen with a flood. No, just the opposite. A flood would put all kinds of crap up there, all kinds of animal life. Why is this just putting these ancient types of fossils up there? Because that's when they died a long time ago, when there was a seabed.
Well, I know this isn't really about the flood, this hangout, but here's another side one, is
Okay.
that this Christian website I was looking at said that there's cultures all over the world that have some type of flood legend in their books or whatever.
Yeah, and there's a reason for that.
Mm-hmm. Go ahead, Gary.
Because like Steve knows about science, I know about comparative religion. Now the thing is that these civilizations have in common that they're near a body of water. Like you look from like the Mexican one to the Aztec one to like all sorts. What do they have in common? They're near a body of water. Like the Jews were near the Med, the Aztec were near the Atlantic, I think. And it would flood. It would flood, and there's times where it would flood very, very hard, like tsunamis and stuff like that. Now, can you imagine, like, all your possessions, all the things you have in the world that mean the most to you are in a small place, and something comes over and wipes that away? It's going to feel like the end of the world, is it not? That's where it comes from. It's not saying that literally the entire world flooded. It's saying that something that was precious to those people flooded. And that's how they understood and valued things. It's not the same way that we do now, where the internet is connected us all.
And also, they also give vastly different dates, vastly different accounts. There's really no thread between all of them except for one: water. They're so different in all their stories about when this flood took place, how far was it, what the details were. Yeah, there's just no correlation between any of them except all of them deal with water.
And the thing is, there are some atheists who are stupid who claim that the Jews got it from the Epic of Gilgamesh, which they didn't. So basically, what you might want to do is read a guy called Johnson Z. Smith and his book on comparative religions and how every religion exists more or less on its own thing, but how certain geological things can play into similar stories or similar things, events occurring in things that happen to them.
Okay, check this out. Are we talking about the flood? Yeah, we are. So
yes.
Check this out.
Yeah.
Okay, so I'll just read one little short paragraph here.
All right. I mean, but do you understand what he's talking about? Like this Epic of Gilgamesh, the Popol Vuh. Yeah. I mean, I did an excerpt on the Popol Vuh. I think it's part 1, section 3. Yeah, you can read this, and there's nothing in there that relates to a flood story except for water. I mean, it's just completely different from what the biblical flood would be. And yet people say, oh, look, the Mayans had a flood story. Well, no, go read the Popol Vuh. It basically has nothing in common except water.
Okay, check this out. Matt and other Christians might find more interesting what I'm about to say, but it's also good information for anyone in general. So there's a Peter, from the Bible, in the book of Peter, I think, from the book of Peter, 2 Peter, also describes the universality of the flood, where he states, by these waters also the world of that time was deluged and destroyed. By the same word the present heavens and earth are reserved for fire, being kept for the day of judgment and destruction of ungodly men. In these verses, Peter compares the universal coming judgment to the flood of Noah's time and states that the world that existed then was flooded with water. And then two more sentences. Further, many biblical writers accepted the historicity of the worldwide flood. Isaiah, 1st and 2nd Peter again, Hebrews. Lastly, the Lord Jesus Christ believed in the universal flood and took it as the type of coming destruction of the world when he returns, which he talks about in Matthew and Luke. So, you get what I was pointing out there? Basically, what I was pointing out there was Jesus, Isaiah, Peter, and Hebrews, all of them seem to have believed that the flood was, universal. So I think that might be an issue. Well, you know, yeah, I see Matt unmuted.
Yeah, I mean the key term there is seemingly. People who are theistic evolutionists, I mean, the ones that go into it responding to young Earth creationist critiques, which is not something I genuinely regularly do, they have explanations for those passages. You know, what does it mean by world, and what's the Greek word for world and earth and things like that. So yeah, I mean, at first glance, you can read a passage like that and think, oh, this is supporting a worldwide universal flood. But you then have to look at the other side and say, okay, so what's the theistic evolutionist saying about this? And then you have to look at the response to that. And then at some point you have to collate the information together,
Okay,
put it
well,
all
Matt,
on one side, and draw a conclusion on what the actual text is saying.
okay, well, Matt, check this out. Yeah, I hear what you're saying about looking up the original words, but conceptually speaking, it seems to me that the Bible teaches that the judgment or whatever is a judgment for the whole world. And so if Jesus says that in the end there's the same judgment's going to happen, but it's going to be by fire, I don't think Jesus would be saying there's going to be a local judgment fire.
No,
Well, if it says destroyed the world of that time, and the world is taken to be the populated world at that time, and that's who it affected, it's not referring to a global flood. It's referring to a local flood that affected the people of that time.
So
There's different interpretations of the passages, and
okay,
yeah, like I say, you have to
okay.
look at the theistic responses to that.
Okay, but then when Jesus also says the whole world and stuff, then we would have to logically follow that Jesus doesn't actually mean the whole world either then.
Yeah, MK, I've got to interrupt, unfortunately. I'm going to have to be ending this. I'm not going to step on Talking Shit Tuesday. I've got a lot of viewers. I am going to ask if they do watch Talking Shit Tuesday. I don't think I'm going to be on it, but I'm going to listen to it. But I have respect for JD Kane that, you know, he does this at this time, and I'm not going to take away his audience. I do want to thank EMK. We can continue this after TST or maybe like another day. I do owe EMK a hangout. I'm saying this right here. He can have it at any time he wants, and I'm available. He can bring in anybody he wants, as long as I get to bring in a few people too to make it a little fair. But if he wants to like say, hey, you know, Steve's going to be in my hangout, bring in Darwin's or Neffy or Ronnie, be my guest. I'm not going to. I made a fair deal with you, and I'm going to definitely hold to it. Again, as long as I get some people too, because these people don't want to be answering some questions. I'm fine with answering any questions any of the Conquer Posse asks me. If I don't know something, I'm fine with that. But they don't want to answer specific questions. I know. But anyways, I do have. I'm sorry. Go ahead. I'll give you the last word. Okay.
I saved my big guns evidence for the next hangout about.
Ooh, okay. That's cool. No, that's awesome. You know what? How about we do this? I am going to announce a couple things real quick. I do have a hangout 8 a.m. tomorrow, my time, Pacific. It's going to be 11 Eastern, with a guy named Boy Kakomi, who I've ran against before. He just messaged me a couple days ago and said, hey, Steve, I'm in these forums, and I've told people that you're the only, in his words, atheist I've ever lost to. And I informed him I'm not an atheist, but he's been really kind of upset that the last time he was in here that he got decimated so bad. But he's a nice kid, and he wants a round two, so I told him I'd give it to him. So that's going to be happening tomorrow morning. When EMK and I will get together, and we'll find another time to do this. It could be even later on tonight. I don't know. It's completely up to him. But I want to thank him for coming on and having this dialogue. I ask everybody, let's go watch Talking Shit Tuesday. I also want to acknowledge the people that have been Patreons to me. Very, very generous. I put my Patreon in my links again. I forgot to put them on the video. My bad. But I did put them now on the video, so if you refresh, it'll come up. I also put in the live feed. Anything you can Patreon for $1, $2, $10, whatever. It makes a huge difference. As you can tell, somebody donated a mic to me, so obviously my mic quality has gone up considerably. It's a very nice mic, and thank you for that. These things do get put to use. I am working on a video, so I'm not going anywhere. I'm here for the community, and I appreciate all the support you've given. So EMK, do you want to give the last word real quick, and then I'm going to end the hangout so we can go watch Talking Shit Tuesday.
Yeah, no, I just want to say to everyone that Steve was really cordial to me in setting this up and everything, so that's all good, and thank you, and yes.
Hi, thank you. Thank you, Gary, and thank you, EMK, and we will let you guys know when part 2 will be happening. And let's go watch JD King.